Well, I just turned 76 and realized that 76 seems a long time. No, I'm happy to still be able to continue being a sculptor and doing the work that I've chosen. I am still a Singapore citizen, but I am also a permanent resident living in Canada. When I was in school, it was a very Western-orientated, education program and thinking. I was also very aware that the British government, before the independence of Singapore in 1965, were the administration and the ruling. I think they sort of dictated, all the policies for Singapore. So with that, my background was, naturally quite Western. I happen to think what would be significant in my approach to the sculptures that I do should reflect my own thinking for one, and also memories of growing up in Singapore is in fact my identity. It also helps to use these ideas which are connected to myself and to share, say, within the Singapore public, would be able to relate to the ideas that I have used in order to create my sculptures. Then it's important to remember what I term the abbreviation your TAP, T-A-P, which means your time and place. So this is the TAP that would be the source of your own existence and will continue to be the creative flow of your life. So the time that you were born and the place in which you were born wasn't a choice. So this is the historical, almost given, what I term as an accident of birth and of history. I think many of my commissioned works, subject matter that I found interesting myself. So the example obviously was the boys jumping on the Singapore River. So when I was approached, when they first came out with this idea that they wanted to have the Singapore River story recreated, and especially tying up with the demand made and the injunction by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew to clean up the Singapore River. So then it was also, I remember, part of the Ministry of Culture and backed up by the Tourism Board to start thinking about what they could do in order to, with a cleaned up Singapore River. They thought, yes, let's do something to tell the public about what happened along the Singapore River and create the story that was around this area. There were boys, mainly Malay boys, and a lot of families among the Coolie community. They lived in the boats, the river boats, and you would see the children there bathing and also playing, jumping into the water. But the idea that struck me and which I used as the basis of the boys jumping off the Singapore River were boys who climbed up the Anderson Bridge. So the Anderson Bridge would be the bridge further out towards the sea, and they would jump off the bridge, and they would do so because they were tourists waiting to take snapshots of them. They wanted to show off. So that idea was so graphic to me. It was so novel. Not that I dared to jump myself. No, nobody wanted to get this dirty, smelly water. It just struck me that we could engineer it such that we would show that the boys are almost mid-air. The whole idea, in fact, was something that I presented, and they immediately liked the idea. And my piece was, in fact, the first created along the Singapore River. By choosing to work on, say, the actual happening that I experienced within Singapore, I have managed, in this case anyway, to resonate with the public who are now able to look at the work and say, yes, we have similar feelings of, say, the young Singapore, and the Singapore that is now no longer with us, but we have developed. But the memories of this is still very charming, it's still very childlike and innocent. firstly, when I was asked to think about it, it was already something that I knew would be installed in the open, in the outdoors. So while a piece of work may seem large, Moongate, the Gardens by the Bay, stands at 3.8 meters tall. So if you have a work here, 3.8, you would almost be touching the ceiling. So when you move the same piece of work out in the open, where the sky is the limit, so it gets apparently midgeted in that specific locality. So I wanted it to also be larger, but then immediately I have to be aware of the logistics of how you would have to move a piece of work from, say, where it is done or where it is going to be installed. It has to be moved, say, on a truck. And the number of bridges that you would have to drive under always has a sign on the top. It says about 4.5 meters. So if I were to consider to have a Moongate as tall as 5 meters, then I would be in serious trouble. Although wood, by comparison, is softer than stone, working wood is more laborious. The reason being the structure of wood is are bundles of wood fibers that are all fused together in the process of the growth of the tree. So while I chisel away, wood does not fall away unless it's cut fully. Every slither of the fiber has to be cut away. As you know, when you tear a piece of torn, damaged wood, it continues to be attached to the main in the structure. Stone being what it is, usually for marble, it's crystalline, made out of compressed particles of crystal, in this case, as a result of the age of the material. Fractures and breaks away with the impact on its material. I am very conscious that I don't want to copy or imitate the very ornate Asian carvings on the furniture surface itself. Again, it's the tradition of say, the different races in this region. I tend towards, in fact, minimalistic Japanese aesthetics. I remember reading something about the samurai sword. And the samurai sword, the cutting edge, if I read it correctly, the curve of the cutting edge is so feelingly drawn and therefore worked on, because the Japanese aesthetics, and sensitivity is very different. Say from the example I use, say possibly Indonesian or even Chinese for that matter. When I found out that like last year they used Boys by the River as part of the visual filming set, they based the National Day song, and I remember they had 2 shots of the work. And then a lot of people, remarked about it because the Boys by the River has become so iconic that every time I tell people, I also know about it, but who is the person behind it? So very few people know me. There is always the struggle, no matter what choices you have made. The meaning and say the fulfillment of that choice will only come about and be measured by the same proportion of what effort, blood, sweat and tears you have put into it.